Hi, I'm Meanwhiles and Neverweres, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my new song, Less. It's not a massively complicated song, there's not too much going on, but there are some bits that I think might be interesting. Maybe, we'll see. So the song obviously opens with that riff. Which is a little bit surf rock when it's played clean, but then bring the distortion in, suddenly it's metal. Wonderful how that happens. But the interesting thing I think with that is it's a bit ambiguous as to what scale it's in, because you got those chromatic notes being played and those it's built on lots of minor seconds, so it could be super Locrian scale, which would be, which as a scale sounds a bit fucked. But it also could be a Phrygian flat 4, which would be, which is also, when you compare it to like a major and minor scale, a bit fucked, but less fucked. It's a bit ambiguous as to what is going on because of that chromaticism. But then in the verse, we drop some of those notes and we get so we drop in that flat 5, we're just getting the perfect fifth, which puts us definitively Phrygian flat 4, which is fun. That has no effect on rest at the song, it's just there for riff. The rest at the song is more functional. It's not particularly functional in terms of Western classical harmony, but it's a bit more functional. We don't need to go into that. So with that riff change we move into the verse, and that riff has quite, not a distinct rhythm, but it's quite a specific rhythm. Which, when writing lyrics and vocal lines, you always want there to be space between the vocals and everything else that's happening, so that you can distinguish between the vocals and everything else. But I thought it would be fun with that rhythm if the vocals followed it a bit. So you get the waiting and boiling, after show betrayal, sit back in absence, ignorance and luxury. So it follows the bounciness of it, but then you get some held bits and some gaps to let the riff have space and the vocals have space. But the problem with doing that was that some of the vocal lines interlock with each other, which you can't really do in one take. So I knew I would have to record some of them and then some of them and then put them together, which would sound a bit fucked if they were all just in middle, panned in middle. So what I did was pan some of them to left, some of them to right. So you get the waiting and boiling, after show betrayal, sit back in absence, ignorance and luxury, which I think is a pretty cool effect that works quite well in that context. You wouldn't do it all the time, obviously, but I think with that riff and that vocal line, it's pretty cool. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Who's to say? And the other thing with that is, when you pan the vocals, obviously you're losing a bit of volume, but you're also shoving them to one side, so you're losing a bit of the concentration. So to keep it harmonically interesting, not in terms of chordal harmony, in terms of like harmonic information in the actual sound, the overtones, harmonic series type stuff, we don't need to learn about that right now, but it's there. So if I'm clever, I'll put in an example now of vocal layers. Each of the vocals are layered with 2 different performances recorded twice and then put on top of each other, which gives it quite a lot of, especially with screamed vocals, gives it quite a lot of artificial harmonics through the voice, and then when you're stacking those on top of each other you get a lot of harmonics stacking on top of each other. So that's cool, and it makes the vocals a bit more interesting than they otherwise would be. The panning and the layering, it's not the most groundbreaking thing to be done, but it works in the context, and that's what you got to do. You got to make stuff work in context. There's no point putting it in if it doesn't add out, or it actively detracts from some stuff. Sometimes you put something in and you're like, oh, that's really cool, but then you put it in and it makes everything else sound like shit. You don't want to do that. Not good. So yeah, it works in context, it sounds good, it fits the song, it's very nice. So the next bit I want to talk about is the bridge, which the guitar part isn't particularly complex, it's just... It's just a 001 riff. Everyone loves a 001 occasionally. And because there's not much going on with that guitar riff, it leaves a lot of space for your drums and vocals, which is what the bridge is focused on. It's mainly drums, it's mainly vocals, and then guitar riff sort of sits behind a little bit. So it's the most vocal focused part of the song, I would say. It's also got a few fun drum fills. I think 4, maybe more than 4. And yeah, the drum fills just add a bit of seasoning to an otherwise quite monotonous and repetitive section. And the vocals, it lets the vocals keep going, just keep going through the entire section, and then ends up back in the pre-chorus. Back into chorus. And the chorus, again, not much particularly happening. It's a bit more chuggy. Again, choruses are quite vocal focused, so you don't want the guitar to be doing too much. But one thing that the chorus is doing is the chords aren't dissonant or consonant in themselves. They kind of just exist, but they keep seeming like they're going to set up a resolution and they never do. And that's the bit that's a bit dissonant in terms of functional harmony. Again, it's not really using functional harmony, it's kind of just going. But the chords... they don't really work together. There's no reason why those chords should be put together, but they are. And it ends on which is just awful. Especially after getting... Now, why are we doing that? Awful. And the entire chorus harmonically kind of sounds a bit awful, which fits the song, because the lyrics are about watching someone just be cruel and mean, because it's easier than being nice. So the chorus sounding a bit fucked fits for that, I think. There's some other wee bits dotted around the song, like there's a bass riff in the pre-chorus. But there's not else that really needs talking about. Again, it's not a very complicated or complex song, it kind of is what it is. I think it's very tempting when writing a song, especially for me, to try and put lots of different ideas in, and sometimes those ideas don't work or they take away from what was already there, and you have to be okay killing those ideas if it doesn't serve the overall experience of the song. So for this song, it's just a riff, a development of that riff, a chorus and a bridge. That's the song. There's no else that really needs adding to it. You could add a massive string section, you could add a guitar solo in bridge, but it doesn't really serve the song when the main carrying force of the song is the riff and then vocals. So yeah, there's not much going on, but it's somewhat interesting, I think. Maybe this was completely boring to watch and listen to. Maybe someone found it interesting. If at least one person found it interesting, that's good. But yeah, that was Less. You can listen to it on most streaming platforms. You can watch the music video on this YouTube channel. And yeah, have fun.